Thanks for being with us. Looking at the guest list tonight, there are guests from all time zones and outside of the US. So we have friends from all over, all corners of the country. Our guest, thank you. Our guest of honor is an author, a public speaker, an entrepreneur, a mother, a wife, a sister, a daughter, a dear, dear friend, our one and only Simone Knego. She will share her journey, some of her journey that led to the publishing of her first book, The Extraordinary UnOrdinary You, and she'll be moderated by Alison Lebovitz. Alison is the host of the A-List with Alison Lebovitz, an engaging one-on-one weekly interview series for PBS. She's a national speaker who has served as a TEDx speaker, coach, and MC. She also serves as the president of One Clip at a Time, a nonprofit inspired by the Paperclips Project that started in Whitwell, Tennessee. Joining us from Chattanooga tonight, here's Alison to introduce Simone. Welcome, ladies. Alison, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Giselle. And hello, Sarasota and New Jersey and New York. And there's people all over the place. So we're so happy you're here. And I know a lot of people are connected to Simone the way that I am connected to Simone, which is through National Young Leadership Cabinet. So a special shout out to all of our cabinet peeps. We're so happy to have you. I want you to know, it takes a special person to get me to bring myself all the way from my living room to my office for this event tonight, because it was quite the trek. It was a good 17 paces, and it's a little cold in Chattanooga. I won't lie. It's a little bit of flurries going on. Don't make fun of us, the Southerners, but I was wrapped up today, just like Julie Green as she's walking on the shady side of the street in Sarasota. So, but I'm thrilled to be here. And Simone, the moment I met her, we were fast and ultimately longtime friends. And I was thrilled to know that she was finally, at last, putting her sacred stories into the form of this incredibly powerful and inspiring book. So when she asked me if I would help moderate tonight, she didn't have to even, the text barely made it out or the phone call barely made it through without me saying an immediate and an enthusiastic yes. So we're going to talk for about 20-25 minutes, really just have a conversation. We're glad you're all here as part of that. I'm going to encourage you, if you have questions, to put them in the chat or even save them for later. We'll be happy to hear your voice, not just see that through writing. We want this to be interactive because I'm sure you'll think of questions that I don't. So, but we'll begin, Simone, with some of the obvious questions, right? So here we are. As you can tell, I've got 2 copies of this book because one is for me, is my personal copy. One I'm supposed to give. That's like a tall task. That who deserves the second sacred copy, right? But I was thrilled when Simone also asked me to be on the back cover of the book. Yes, that is me giving one of the 4 accolades. So a few questions I'm going to throw out all in a row, Simone.
I'm ready.
Tell us a little bit about the writing process, how that worked. Tell us about the title of the book specifically, how you came to that. And finally, what everybody really wants to know. How did you get Ethan Zahn on the back of the book, right? Like, how did that ever come to be? I'm going to let you take it, Simone.
Thank you. Before I start, I want to thank the Federation of Sarasota-Manatee for putting this event on tonight. I'm so grateful for everything they always do for me. Also, a big shout out to all my cabinet friends. Thank you for your support. Obviously, Sarasota community, friends from far and wide, and also my Momentum sisters. Thanks for being here. The writing process. So I'm not a writer, but I think of myself as a storyteller. So, and it's funny when some of the first people that read the book said to me, I feel like it's a conversation on the couch. And to me, that was the perfect thing because, really, I'm not going to use words that I don't use when I have a conversation. And so that's really what I tried to come across with. And I guess it worked. I spent a year writing, and it might not sound like a long time, but when I finished as co-chair of cabinet, I had all this extra time on my hands. So that was the right time. I said, okay, this is it. I'm going to sit down and write this book. And that's what I did. So all of my free time, I scheduled it so that I would sit down and write every day. I can tell you my best writing happened sitting on the couch in the family room, surrounded by chaos, because that would bring back like those stories that I really wanted to put down on paper. As I sat quietly, I was like, I can't think of anything. And as I sat in the chaos, everything came to me. The title of the book, I am an ordinary person, right? I mean, that's how this whole process began. And I think for a long time, I struggled. I looked at myself in the mirror and I thought, are you doing things that really matter? And it took a while. And then at some point, I realized everything that we do as people matters. It doesn't matter if I'm the CEO of a corporation, or, I'm the stay-at-home mom, I matter. And so that was really when I thought about, the extraordinary, unordinary you, sticking unordinary as, in capital letters, is that everybody is extraordinary. Everybody is unordinary. And that was kind of how I came up with the title. Okay.
Was there ever a different working title for the book?
No, not a working title. I mean, I looked at a lot of different words and I was like, it actually took a long time to come up with something that I really liked. I'm really picky about my words. And so in the writing process, rewrite, especially when I'm writing about the kids, I want to be very specific. So, the title itself was, it took a long time to get there, but I didn't call it anything else until I would call it the book. But yeah, it finally, that was the title. And then I stuck to it. I didn't switch it around once I committed to it. And then Ethan.
Now, for people who don't know, explain, if anybody who
Yeah.
didn't watch Survivor and know that he is famous for that. I think he's been resting on that Survivor laurel for like 20 years or something.
Yeah.
No offense to him. He's also like a 2-time cancer survivor and an extraordinary human being. But I feel like you spoke on the same stage as him or possibly interviewed him. How did that come to be?
Yeah, I actually interviewed him at an event in Sarasota, and I was thinking ahead, and we started talking. And actually, what I joked about was that I was going to apply to be on Survivor. Kind of joking, kind of not, because I actually did once do a video and send it in. I did not get a call back. But so we were having that conversation, and he's a great guy. And so I said to him, hey, what would you think about writing a blurb for my book? And he said, I would love to. I would be honored. And he did. And like right away, he read it and wrote a blurb. And, thank you, Ethan.
What has been, and we, besides the writing process, we'll go back there because I really want to talk about, what stories resonated so much that they had to be included, and likewise, which stories maybe, were left on the editing room floor, so to speak. But I want to fast forward to when the book came out. What was it like for you emotionally to not just have shared the book with, sort of an intimate circle of friends, but now to be on the Amazon, top bookshelf list, literally, right? And being exposed to people who not only know and already adore you, but to make yourself vulnerable to audiences who were just getting a sense of you from these pages?
So, it was one of those hard things where, I'm putting myself out there completely, right? Like I'm telling very personal stories about myself and my family. But I said to myself from the beginning that if I can change one person's mind or change the way one person sees themselves, then it's worth sharing, even my toughest moments, of course. I mean, like that's how you make these connections. And I think for me, I guess this goes back a little bit to the writing process. I actually didn't let Rob or the kids, then Olivia helped me with a couple of things. I didn't let them read the book until it was completely final. And did that because I wanted it to be my stories, my words. And fortunately, they all liked it. There was always that concern. Rob said to me, he's like, I was going to support you no matter what. I was scared when I read it that I was going to just have to say, honey, oh, I really loved it. And then he said to me, but honey, I really loved it. It wasn't, I'm not saying it out of obligation. I'm saying it because I really do think I think you did an amazing job. And so that was like, maybe that was like the biggest thing for me, is that my family was good with what I put out there. And that was a huge moment for me.
Was there anything they weren't good with? I mean, was there any story where they wanted you to either change some facts or protect the innocent, or said, there's a much better story that doesn't make me look so pitiful or, a funny, or were they, I can't imagine, right? I only have half of your brood. And whenever I tell a story about them, I get edited immediately. I think there's all these parents and grandparents out there who probably feel my pain. How did you do that with 6 such diverse kids, all ages, right? And all different likes and backgrounds, and have them all approve of the stories, or did they?
I would say nobody has, okay, so from the beginning, Millie actually asked me, can you just not include me in the book? And I was like, okay, well, great. I'm going to include 5 out of 6 kids. That's going to go over well. And, she's more private. Like she doesn't love when I post pictures of her, and she's gotten used to it. So that was her comment at first. But one of the things that happened was when we got our first set of hard copies in the house, they were sitting on the counter, and she took one upstairs. She kind of slid it under her sweatshirt and went upstairs. And she called me about an hour later, FaceTime, tears streaming down her face, saying, I have to tell you, Mom, I really thought I was going to hate this book. But I love it. I can't believe how good it is. And she's like, I can't stop crying about the story about Ari's brother. And I can't stop crying about Noah being a number. And I can't stop crying. And it was really, I think that's the only review I ever need, other than Rob being okay with it. But like for Millie to say that was huge. In terms of stories that maybe I would say only the only story that Rob gave me, he's like, I don't remember it exactly going that way. The Kilimanjaro story about his friend asking him if he wanted to climb. And I mean, the way I remember it is his friend asked him, and basically he went 1, 2, 3, no, call Simone. I'm sure she'd love to do it. But he's like, no, I would have done it. I think I would. I was like, no, you wouldn't have. So that might be the only story where he disagreed with, how we saw it. But and I really, they were all really supportive about it. So it makes me happy.
So I'm glad you brought that up. First, I forgot to even acknowledge the fact that you've got your whole brood home, right? I think Jacob might be getting Ari from basketball practice, but at some point, right tonight, you'll have literally a full house with your amazing husband, Rob, who I know is joining us, and hopefully finishing up his amazing dinner. And then Jacob, Emma, Olivia, Ari, Noah, Millie, all somewhere in the house, either listening or not. But when you brought up the story, and I've literally have it marked right here, but the story about Ari. And for those of you who have not bought this book yet, I'm hoping that it's just because you haven't downloaded it on your Kindle and you haven't somehow gotten it through Amazon yet, but it really will. I mean, Stacy Friedman, who's on here, if you haven't cried as much as I have, right? Like it will bring you to tears in one chapter and then immediately have you hysterically laughing. But there is that part about when you went to get Ari in Ethiopia. And I came upon it again when I was refreshing myself, but it starts with a difficult conversation, right? And you write, one of Ari's brothers started crying while we were talking. He seemed just slightly older than Ari. And of course, for those of you who don't know, Ari was adopted from Ethiopia. Is he crying because he's missing his brother? I asked. No, the interpreter said, he's crying because he wants to go with you too. Now, as you recall that story and so many other painful stories through the book, how did you number one, not just live through it the first time, but how did recounting the story affect you? Was it hard? Was it somehow cathartic? And are those stories, you know, to Millie's point, right? Had you told her these stories before and she was just hearing it in a new light?
So I think it was, honestly, I think it was really cathartic. I think going through it the first time was really sad and really hard. I mean, you have to think that, you know, we have a lot of people that will say to us like, you know, adoption, like your kids are so lucky. And I always say we are the lucky ones. And you have to think like they start at a place of loss, right? They lose everything they know before they joined our family. And so I think that reliving those stories actually kind of gave me some peace, and kind of, you know, the first time going through it was really tough. And then after that, I really think that it kind of was like the reminders of, you know, my kids are exactly where they're supposed to be. And that's with us. And, you know, all of the things that they went through really brought us as a family to this point. But going back to the piece about Millie, when, you know, she read her, so when she first started reading the book, she, you know, she was reading the stories about Ari and Noah. And I said, have you read about yourself yet? And she said, not yet, but I want to keep reading tonight. I can't put it down. And so, and she did. And so I said, what do you think? After she read it, she's like, you know, I didn't know these stories because I was so little. You know, she was 2.5 years old. And after, you know, reading the stories, you know, that was the question, what do you think? And she's like, well, I think I should be thankful. And I said, nope, wrong answer. Don't ever say to me, like, I'm thankful because I'm part of your family. No, that's not it. Like, try again, like your family, we love you. There's no thanks there. And she said, okay, so what I think is that it makes me want to do good things for other people. And that to me as a mom, that was like, you know, such a powerful moment that, you know, her reading about, you know, her beginning, how it made her want to do things for other people. So.
Well, and it's amazing because the timing of the release of your book, right, has not been lost upon any of us. Number one, a book about how those small moments are monumental, right? That the ordinary is turned into extraordinary at a time when we're all sort of refocused on the meaning of life during COVID. And then post a very turbulent time in our nation's history, especially after Black Lives Matters and the protests and the idea of reflecting on diversity. What about the timing of your book in relation to those things? As it came out or as you were about to release it and publish it, were you rethinking some of the stories? Were you thinking you should add stories, or were you really just thinking, as I have been thinking, I can't imagine a better message at a better time?
I'm going to go with the last piece. But I did actually, one of the stories in the book actually happened right during that time. It was not an old story. It was a story, you know, that happened about the, I had a handyman working in the house, and we had a conversation about the Confederate flag. And that story happened, you know, while I was, you know, I had my chapter done, and that story happened. And I thought, I need to include this story because, you know, this to me is such an important piece, kind of what my role is as a mother and as an advocate for my kids and an advocate for humankind, that if I can educate someone on something or bring light to something, that's what I need to do. And that's what I did. And that's why I included it. So everything else was already there. That story was an add-on as it happened during the time of writing that chapter. So that worked out well.
So not to stay on the serious, because there are so many just treasured and lighthearted moments that, for the same reasons, right, bring inspiration and laughter to all of us. What is one of your favorite moments in the book along those lines?
Olivia will kill me for this, but I think the bathroom story in Italy, that to me is that whole day, like it's so comical to look back on it. So if you haven't read it yet, the basically my best friend from college was getting married in Italy, and so we brought the three youngest kids with us. That's the three oldest. That's who we had at the time, and actually Olivia had just been discharged from the hospital. She had rotavirus, so poor kid. She like literally got discharged. We got on a flight that night at 11 p.m. So that wasn't enough of a struggle, but we were so one of the days that we were in Italy, they were doing like a wine tasting, and Rob said, I'll take the kids into San Gimignano and you go to the wine tasting. Okay, I'm in. I like wine, I'm going. And so he took the kids into San Gimignano, and there's a lot of stories that go with it, but Olivia, as soon as I got there, she had to go to the bathroom. And the way the bathroom worked there is that you basically put in a coin, the door opens, you go in, you go to the bathroom, you come back out, the door closes, and the entire bathroom gets washed down. There's a wash cycle. Well, the door opened, a woman walked out, Olivia ran in, the door closed, and the wash cycle went on. And so Olivia got completely washed. Here she's like screaming and they can't get the door open. And Rob's like, they're trying everything to get the door open. And finally they had to wait for the wash cycle to end. And, the wash cycle ended, and, their poor Olivia was like soaked, and she's still traumatized. She's written an essay about it. She, like it's definitely like added to her humor on stuff, but I think that was one of my favorite ones. And then when they got home from the trip to San Gimignano, she had been complaining all day that her feet hurt, and Rob was with my best friend's dad, and he looks at Olivia as they walk in the house, and he's like, hey Rob, look at her feet. And Rob's like, what? And he said, her shoes are on the wrong feet. They've been on the wrong feet all day long. No wonder the poor kid was complaining. So she got washed by the wash cycle, and she had her shoes on the wrong feet the entire day.
Well, I told you this summer that I was repeating that story to a friend of mine. And because I had read the book right before it got published, I just couldn't. I thought I had seen it in a movie. I thought I had read it in a different book. I couldn't remember. And finally I go, oh, wait, it's real. No, it happened to my friend Simone's daughter. Okay, it happened, right? Look, before we open up to questions, I actually borrowed a question. This won't surprise you, but I did a little pre-planning, and I texted two of our mutual friends who actually were our connection, but Josh and Julie Green this morning, and said, what would you ask? They're so close to you. I said, what would you ask Simone? And the craziest thing is they wrote back at the exact same time, the exact same question, right? Like, what are the chances? We know they're kindred spirits when that happens. And it's a great question, right? Like to Julie's point, who said, like, everything that you are asked to do, Simone, you jump at the chance, right? You're a natural leader. You're an incredible mother and wife. You're an amazing professional. You are a staunch volunteer, all of these things. So what are your regrets, right? Like when we talk about the unordinary you, there has to be maybe something you didn't jump at the chance to do, or maybe you did jump, right? And in the jumping, you found it was a mistake. Do you have any of those regrets?
I would say, and I can't look back and say I have regrets, because everything I've done in my life has brought me to this point, right? Like if I did things differently, I probably wouldn't have the family I have today, or I wouldn't be talking to you right now. So, but I would say my only real regret is when I was pre-med in college, and I did pretty crappy in organic chemistry. And that to me was kind of like, I'm not going into medicine. And that really, it changed my entire path. So I decided that I wasn't going to go into medicine. I went into accounting. And I would say, looking back, like that would be my only real regret. I never regret saying yes to things. I mean, I learned something from everything I do. So saying yes is never an issue. But that would be the one thing that but again, I wouldn't be in the place I am today. So I can't say I really regret it at all.
And after someone reads this, right, and people who know you, people who are getting to know you through the book, what do you hope they take from it? What are the top, 2 or 3 lessons that you hope, like if they learn nothing else, or if they're inspired by nothing else, what do you hope they know?
Everybody struggles, and by sharing your story with other people, it really can help other people. So not just sharing like your perfect photos. Trust me, I share those too. Like when I get a picture of my kids and it's perfect, I want to share it. But there's always like thousands of photos that go along with that weren't. So everybody struggles. That you matter, like the things that you do, whether you're the speaker on stage, you're the stay-at-home mom, changing diapers, you're working at a big corporation, and the way you interact with other people, the respect you have for other people, really makes a difference on a daily basis. What else do I want to say? And I'm really big on the say yes piece, that you never know what you're going to learn by having a conversation with somebody and really sharing. And I say it in the book, some of my best conversations are, sitting on a plane next to a stranger, and learning all about their life and telling them about mine. And I've made like the weirdest connections, but like the greatest connections by just being open and not being scared to say something. Josh Green actually was saying to me, yeah, Simone, after I read your book, when I would get in the elevator, I started like saying hi to people. And when I walked down the hall, I'd start saying hi to people. And he's like, and I think they think I'm crazy. And I was like, well, because you didn't say hi for years and now you're saying hi. But I don't think so. I think it's really important to when you see someone, like extend a hand, like that's kind of how I see it. So,
yeah. And by the way, to your point, Josh, everybody thought you were crazy before you said hello. So don't blame Simone. Yeah, I see that. All right, so I want to open it up, right? I know, and there's pages of people, and I think you're going to start getting in the chat. Now you're going to realize I can't read anything without this. Oh, hi, Millie just wrote me personally that she had got to go to Whitwell, Tennessee and see the rail car. That's awesome. So thank you for that, Millie. If you have questions you want to write to Simone, I could talk to her and ask questions all night, but I don't want to monopolize it. So if you do, I'm going to keep asking until I see. But Simone, also, which I failed to mention, I alluded to it though, but what didn't make the book, right? Like what was there a chapter? Was there a direction you started to go? Was there one story where you thought, and of course now I'm going to say the most embarrassing story that didn't make it, and now you want to share it with all of your closest family and friends. What's not in the book that almost made it?
We have a lot of outtakes. I said I was going to do like a book of outtakes, but like to tie in the stories to the chapters, like that was kind of like, so there's a lot of stories that we have that might not have tied into the chapters. Like, for example, the time I lost Emma at Disney World. Where am I going to put that one? Okay, yeah, I did. I lost her at Disney World. Asked her to go throw away her trash. She was, 4 years old, and she turned left instead of right, and I panicked, and like it was one of those moments. That one didn't make the cut. Not exciting enough because we found her within like 10 minutes. So, if it would have lasted longer, maybe it would have made the book. I have lots of great Rob stories, and I thought, what, like, I can't keep writing Rob stories. Like I've got to, so that's like, the next book, the next book that will have
the Chronicles of Rob Knego. I can see it now. Yes, it will also be a bestseller. I will totally be buying the pre-copies. So
thank you. Yeah, but we have tons of stories. It's just figuring out how to weave everything together and not make a book that's 500 pages that people are like, really, another story? So yeah.
So when did you know you were done? When did you know that the book was complete? Because I would imagine, like you said, like the story that happened even, right during COVID that you threw into that chapter. Mm-hmm. When did you finally say, I've got to, like, this is the story for now?
I gave myself a deadline and said, by this day, you have to be done. Because I mean, you see a lot of people will write and write and write for years, and they're like, I had never finished it. And I just didn't want that to happen. I really set specific deadlines so that I would finish it. And I could write like tons of, I started writing bigger versions about my parents in the book. And then I realized that kind of deserves like its own book. Like there's so many great things I could write about them that it wasn't the right place to put like their entire stories. So that could be another book too. We'll see.
There's so many books.
See how much free time I have, right? Yeah. So many books, so little time. Yeah.
Right. I love this. Anita wrote about tagging onto the greetings, right? How you talk about in the book, how you really do say hi to everybody. In the Bahamas, everyone greets everyone else on the street, in a waiting room, wherever, good day or good night, and they acknowledge their fellow human beings, right? And that, I love that, right? Like to reinforce, I see you, right? I value you. I honor you. I want to also get back to a moment to the fact that you are raising Jews of color, right? And I don't know if any of you had a chance to listen to Rabbi Angela Buchdahl, who's at Central Synagogue and gave an amazing talk, a sermon over Yom Kippur about really like rethinking race in Judaism. And of course, I thought of you too, because she talked a lot about being seen, right? And that when Chabad came to Yale, and because she is Asian, and said, are you Jewish? Are you Jewish? Are you Jewish? They never asked her, right? As you're raising these 6 amazing kids, right? And 3 of them are Jews of color, right? What are the conversations you're having about making sure that they are seen and making sure that they are proud and loud Jewish teens and Jews and people of the universe?
It's always a big conversation about using your voice, self-advocating, and when you don't like what's happening, you have to speak up. Easier said than done, but definitely I can see it in them that they will say stuff if something is said. We haven't had like a lot of interactions that have been, negative in terms of being Jewish. I mean, definitely there's probably the conversation of like, yes, would anybody even look at them and say, oh, you're Jewish? They that probably wouldn't even start the conversation, right? But I do think that, we're raising them to be proud of who they are. And interesting, I had a conversation with Ari, during this whole time period when, protests were happening. And I asked him how he wanted, what do you see? What do you feel is important for you? And when you look in the mirror, what do you see? And he's like, I see a human. And I thought that was a really cool statement. I was like, how do you see it? Of course, he sees himself as Black, but the first thing and the most important thing is that he's human, and everybody should be, treated the same across the board because they're human. But yeah, really just being, self-advocating, like really being able to, and having this great group of siblings that will also step up for you. And, trust me, at home, they can fight like cats and dogs, but if something important happens out in the world, they will be right there to support each other, which I can't ask for more. So.
I love it. All right, Jason Rubinoff, you've got to be on one of these pages. He messaged me that he has a question for you. Where are you, Jason? You can unmute yourself. Hold on. Oh, look. Oh, he wants me to ask it. Okay. Do you have you heard from any of the readers of your book? I know you've got a bunch of 5-star reviews on Amazon. Not that I check every day just to make sure and to vet the ones who may not be. But have you heard from any of your readers, and what do they say? What is that like to have fans? You have fans. Oh my gosh, there are Knego fans. It's amazing. I know.
It's actually kind of funny. Like people will say, oh, will you sign my book? And the kids laugh too. They're like, you just have to say yes. I'm like, I know, but it's so funny. Like, you want me to sign your book? Sure, I'd love to. I've had like really, really great feedback that, again, that the conversation on the couch piece where, I'm kind of opening up my life for people to see, in the hopes that it will help somebody, in the hopes that, it will make a difference for somebody else. And so really those are the pieces of feedback that I've received. It's just that it's, like, thank you for sharing your stories. And some of the best ones were that, I think every day now, how can I do things a little bit differently to make a bigger impact? And, that's like, okay, I'm done. That's all I need.
Alison, I have a question that has come in for Simone earlier. Simone.
Great, thanks, Giselle.
As you parent 6 very different children, are they drawn towards or away from similar perspective as yours for interacting with community and other people?
Ooh, that's a good question. It's pretty individual. Like, so I think they're drawn to it. They all have different, I can tell you one thing, my kids are pretty homebody-ish. They really like being, part of our little community at home. I think that they get it. They understand like why I've been so involved in the Jewish community. And we'll see as they get older. I can tell you that our older kids definitely have kind of found their way into kind of creating their own communities at the schools that they're at, and really kind of feeling comfortable within, the Jewish community at their schools, and kind of, finding their people. Each one of them is so different, and every day it's something different. Like, you never know what's going to happen in this house or what they're going to come up with. But I mean, I think they all really just get that, we are here to make each other's lives better, and we're here to really interact and support people around us. So, and I definitely see that with them all the time. So
I'm going to put them on the spot real quick, because I was cheating and going through some of the pages, looking at all these amazing faces. But Rob, I see you and Olivia. Oh gosh, you can't hide now. So unmute yourself. I want to hear from y'all firsthand about your reaction to the book, because it really is. It's not a book about me, right? It's a book about us. And Simone, really, your mom really took great pains and also liberty to ensure that she was telling your family story. And it's her story, but it's your story, right? What did you think? And I know, Olivia, you've been placed in this position, I think, quite often, where you've gotten to actually interview your own mom for some of these events. And I think that's one of the blessings of this crazy era, is that, we've gotten used to these virtual events, and you've been able to do that from school. So tell us about that.
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. So, I was when she first told me she was going to write this book, I was like, okay. I hope it's just not a bunch of sappy stories that, we'll want to hear in our family, but what's the relevance of everything? And that's always my big thing, is if you're going to put yourself out there, there has to be some relevance to this. And so I did stay away from the book a lot. She wrote a lot of chapters. She asked me some questions, but I'm busy with work and all that. And the night she said, hey, I've kind of finished it, and here's the PDF. And I stayed up the whole night and I read it. And she came out the next morning and said, well, what'd you think? And that story is true, except my words were a little different, which was, well, I can't say it on public thing, but I was like, yeah, it's really pretty good. And I was thrilled that she brought in the Jewish value parts of it. So I kind of was very proud of her, and I was really happy that the stories of our life kind of connected into where I think people can look at it and say, what can we do to make our lives, make more meaningful ourselves, or be happy with what we have. I hope that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And Olivia, you're sort of representing the kids now, so not to put you on the spot, but you are spotlighted. So
I would say that I actually was involved a lot in the book process. My mom said a little bit, but it was a lot. It was definitely a lot of nights on the couch helping her edit. But I remember at school, she sent me the PDF, and I'm not really good with reading documents on like my phone. So I waited until she sent the actual book, and I was so excited. I finished it like within 2 hours of getting it. I was like outside. My friends were like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "No, I'm not okay. This is so good." Like tears streaming down my face. I'm just so proud of her. I just think like she's the coolest mom, the coolest woman I've ever met. And I'm so happy that she's like my role model.
All right, I don't know how, like, as a mother, I don't know how the program can get better than
I was
that.
going to say,
Like,
should we just turn it off now?
exactly. And drop the mic, scene, done, right? Oh gosh, I love that. Giselle, did you get any more questions from anyone? I don't want to leave anyone out.
No, I don't have anyone, no others coming through.
Okay.
If you have any questions, please feel free to use the chat or even, unmute yourself and ask directly to Simone.
And if not, I want to sort of like wrap up and talking about, we talked a lot about the lessons you want others to learn and take from the book, Simone. What did you learn? What has it changed in you having gone through this sort of reflection, right? How are you different now than you were a year ago when you started this process?
I definitely, I pay more attention to a lot of things. It's funny because that's what Rob said, is that the next book should be of how you changed after putting all of these things into motion and really paying attention to how it affects other people, etc. I still have my moments. I'll give you an example. I try to have patience all of the time. I really do. Doesn't always work. We were waiting to go into the Starbucks drive-through, and I had my car like right in a specific place so that people could pass both ways. Well, of course, as I'm waiting there, a woman goes around me, pulls into the drive-through line in front of me. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Here I'm like leaving space, and she like totally cuts me off. And so I'm saying to Millie, like, this is ridiculous. And she's like, it's okay, Mom, it's just the drive-through, take a breath. And I was like, oh, you're right. And we get up to the window, and guess what? The woman in front of us that cut us off paid for our drinks. And so, all of these things where you can never judge what's happening, because you can never walk in someone else's shoes. Never. Doesn't matter. You're never going to be able to do that. So you can't judge. So as soon as that happened and the woman bought us our drinks, Millie's like, you know what? Why don't we buy the people their drinks behind us? I wonder how many cars do you think it will last for? Like, how many people behind us will do that for the person behind them? And it was a very good learning moment for me of like, okay, I'm saying these things, take a step back. This was like a really dumb moment in the drive-through. You never know what's going to happen. So
well, I'll say,
learning my lessons.
Knowing you on a personal level, and then getting to see the richness and the vulnerability within the book, I could see in it sort of, right, that unordinary part of the title always stands out to me, because I think for a long time you're so humble and you're so generous about other people's accolades, right, and spirit, and so resistant to really shining a light on yourself, that I know that it probably took a lot for you to admit how unordinary and how extraordinary you truly are. And I think for me, right, and I think for all of us on this call tonight, and anybody who's read the book, to me, that's the best blessing of all, is that you're not only inspiring us to turn those, incidental moments into something incredible, but we're able to see how someone like you can actually step back and say, okay, I guess it is a little bit extraordinary, right?
It takes a lot of work. Let me tell you, my closest friends will say, you need to learn how to accept when someone gives you a compliment, and like, I'm working on it. I now say, thank you. And
I haven't seen Fico much lately.
I'm really working on it. So that's my goal. And I would just say that I think for you know, my life, I saw myself as ordinary. And until, you know, people start saying, you know, oh, wow, the things you do are inspirational. And then I was like, you know, the things that everybody does, you know, you inspire people every day by the things that you do. And so I'm humble is a word that, you know, I use, but also, you know, really just, you know, when I look at myself in the mirror, I just see myself as, you know, as ordinary. So I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
I'll just say on behalf of everybody, right? If you are ordinary, then it leaves no room for the real ordinary people in this world to do anything. So thank you for finally admitting what an extraordinary person you are, the extraordinary man that you married, and the totally unordinary, extraordinary family that you are raising. I'm thrilled that we could all be here together tonight. I'm thrilled that the Sarasota Federation, right, has brought together the global Jewish community, right, just out of our kitchens and living rooms. And Giselle and Lisa, thank you so much for having me. Simone, thank you for the honor of helping to have this conversation with all of us tonight. You are an incredible woman, a cherished friend, and for all of us, a true inspiration. Giselle, I'll throw it back to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Simone. Thank you so much. Alison, your time with us was very, very special. I appreciate all of you being with us tonight. Simone, I still have my copy that you need to sign, by the way.
Yes. I'll just say yes. Thank you. I'm happy to sign it.
I hope you all enjoyed this evening with us. For more Jewish Federation events, please visit us at our jfedsrq.org/events. Have a wonderful evening. Stay safe. And until we see each other again. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Alison. You are the best.
Love you. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Stay safe. Stay safe.